Hey everybody, it's Chad from Stick's Blog. I'm Stick, and today I want to make another video and just talk about some of the new pieces of gear that I've used on the trip that we went on last weekend. A couple of things are, well, pretty much most of the things I'm going to talk about today are pretty new. Some of the items I've taken on a couple of trips before, some of them, this was my first trip. The first thing I want to talk about is my camera, which I'm actually using right now to shoot this video. So ultimately I'll see how it looks when I get done and edit it and everything. But on this recent trip, the entire first day and night, it was pretty much raining on us. There would be a couple of times throughout the day where we'd have a little bit of a break. However, it was just constantly raining so much there was still, even if it wasn't actually raining, there was still plenty of water falling from the trees and everything else. So pretty much all day there was drops falling on us. Sometimes it would get a little worse, sometimes it would ease up a little bit. And my camera is not waterproof, drop proof, all that stuff. It's just a simple camera. It's a Panasonic Lumix. I think it's a SZ7. To be quite honest with you, I'm not 100% happy with it. However, it does work. It gets the job done. In the future, I'd like to get a different camera, but for now, I'll use what I have. But anyway, I did my routine as we first left the trailhead. I took my camera out, shot a little bit of video saying, hey, you know, here we are, getting ready to do the hike, all that stuff. And it was a short video, and as soon as I got done, I put it in a hip belt pocket. Actually, before I left on the trip, I borrowed one of the Z-Packs Cuban fiber hip belt pockets from my buddy Gizmo Joe with intentions of keeping my camera in there. Now, I will say that it was completely my fault. Considering that I knew it was going to be raining, I really should have had a Ziploc bag or something to put the camera in, rather than just relying on that Cuban fiber hip belt pocket to keep it waterproof. Long story short, when we got to the, since it was raining throughout the day, I never took it back out again. But then once we got to the shelter that afternoon, I did pull the camera out, and as I pulled it out, I mean, there was just water pouring out of it. The inside of the Cuban fiber hip belt pocket it had a good little puddle of water inside it. So needless to say, the camera was not usable, and I was afraid that it was going to be completely just scrapped. However, I got it home. For the rest of that trip, I actually stuck it inside a glove and hoping the glove would kind of pull some of the moisture out. I got it home with intentions of putting it in a bag of rice, but I noticed that it was kind of drying out pretty good, except for on the back display. So it's actually been sitting around the house. It is cold outside, so we've had the heat on, so I guess that maybe helped pull some of the moisture out. But as far as I can tell, everything about it works pretty good now. There's still a little bit of moisture on the back display, but it looks like it's even clearing up. So hopefully I'm going to get lucky. But anyway, that was the camera. And to go ahead and bring it up, my other catastrophe that I had was my LT4 trekking pole. I was up on top of Trey Mountain, and I saw a little marker, and I was standing there, and then I saw another little marker kind of up. It was just like a little, not an outcropping or anything, it was just kind of the trail come up, and there was a little rocky area. I had to kind of walk over the rocks and stuff. More like a slab, not a bunch of rocks piled up. But anyway, I saw another little marker, and I stepped up to get a little bit closer to it, and like I mentioned, it had been raining all day. So as I got closer to it and I went down to look at it, my foot kind of slipped. And what happened is my foot was kind of in a little crevice. You know, my foot was in here, and the tip of the trekking pole was lodged up against my foot in the crevice. So the trekking pole was kind of like this. And then once I went to fall, I was trying to, it kind of happened fast. I don't use straps on my poles, as you can see here. But I couldn't get the handle out of my hand so that I could just catch myself on the ground. It wasn't a big fall or anything like that. But the trekking pole, the handle kind of stayed in my hand as I fell and tried to catch myself. And what happened is, since the tip was stuck up against my foot, whenever I fell, there was a little bit of a rock kind of right here, because this was down in a crevice. And what happened is my trekking pole just did this number. And actually I just broke it even worse than what it was. But it snapped it. You can see that it still kind of held together just a little bit. And what I did is, when it happened, I said, oh crap, that sucks. But what I did when that happened, it was together better than this. But all I did was I unscrewed the trekking pole so that I could loosen it up, and I shoved it up a little bit farther so that this brake was actually right inside the junction. After I did that, it held up just fine. It looks like it's about to come apart now completely. But anyway, it held up okay, but I still, once I got to camp, I took a little piece of duct tape and just put it around the junction. And to be honest, the trekking pole held up just fine. I had no issues with it, because technically all the weight was still being put on the shaft, and it was still lining up to hold my weight and everything. It did fine to hold up my tent throughout the rest of the next 2 nights, and it even held me up, puddle hopping. It was a failure on my part. It wasn't the trekking pole's part, but it was a failure, and luckily it worked for the rest of the trip. But of course my trekking pole was unusable. I did actually, today I got home and I did just get another lower shaft, so I'm still going to use the pole, still look forward to using them. I'm just going to be a little more conscious about what I'm actually doing whenever I am using them. But even still, it wasn't that I was just being reckless or anything, it's just an accident and those things happen. So anyway, that's my LT4 story. Still looking forward to using them though, like I said. I have a couple of other items here. The 2 big items. One is my Enlightened Equipment 35-degree Prodigy quilt. This is a synthetic quilt. It uses 4 ounce per square yard Apex Climate Shield. The inside, if you can see, the black is Noble 10D. I believe since it's black, black is only offered in Noble 2, I believe. However, this may be some old stuff, I'm not really sure. But anyway, it's a 10D Noble material on the inside, and the outside is actually a 15D water-resistant shell. I had a 35-degree Project quilt before this one that had 10D on both top and bottom, but I ended up having to sell it because it was a 5'6" quilt, and as much as I tried, I'm only 5'10", but it wouldn't work for me. So I ended up selling that quilt and going with the exact same quilt except in a 6-foot length. And also I decided to go ahead and get the 15D, the water resistant, more of a water resistant shell, because I plan on using tarps for a while. And I felt like the 15D shell would offer more water resistance than the 10D here. And actually I've got a lot of good things to say about it. On this trip I used it, of course. Before we left I planned on bringing my 15-degree helium, Marmot helium. But then right before we left, temperatures was like low, very high 40s, pretty much 50 degrees. And it was really like a heat spell. So I said, you know what, I'm bringing my down pants, my down socks and stuff like that. I'm going to leave the helium and I'm going to bring the Prodigy quilt. And that way if it does for some reason get down cold, I can still supplement this with my down items. So whenever we got there the first day, I set up my shelter, and I went ahead and I unstuffed my my quilt, and I went ahead and laid it up underneath my tarp. I had my tarp set up in an A-frame, and I used my cloud kilt on one end, the end that the wind and rain was kind of coming from. It was probably anywhere between 6 to 10 inches off the ground all the way around, so it wasn't really lower down to the ground. Which, to be fair, like I said, it wasn't super heavy rain or anything like that. It was just constant. And the wind was blowing, not so much during the day. At night it got a little heavier, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the tarp. But anyway, I went ahead and laid my quilt out over my sleeping pad and everything else. And I wasn't using a bivvy or anything like that. I just used a polycro ground sheet. And whenever we went to bed that night, the fog had really come in. It was super heavy. Visibility, more than a few feet. It was kind of hard to really see much more than a few feet just because the fog was so thick. But anyway, when I went to crawl in bed, the top of this had just a layer of water, mist, or whatever you want to call it, just layered over the top of it. I was kind of bummed out. I was like, dang, this is going to be a wet night. Well, I will say that as the night progressed, and after I quit getting up to pee so many times, the quilt was actually drying out really nice. The only spots that were staying wet was right around the edges where it was kind of tucked underneath me just a little bit. But those places, I think it was more wet just because there was a little bit of rain kind of blowing in. Because like I said, the tarp was a little high off the ground. A little bit of rain blowing in, and maybe some splatter or something off the ground. It's kind of keeping that wet just a little bit. But the top of it was completely dry pretty quick. In the morning I woke up, a lot of the fog had moved out because of the high winds we had that night. But the entire quilt was actually dry except for the footbox. There was a little bit of water at the footbox, which was facing the open end of my A-frame tarp. Because like I said, I had the cloud kilt on the other end. But anyway, it kept me warm. It was comfortable. It fit me. The 10D is really comfortable next to skin because I just wore my underwear. And of course a shirt. But it's comfortable next to skin. The top did a really good job at keeping the insulation and everything dry as far as I'm concerned. And I'm super excited about this quilt. Really excited about it. I like it a lot. And I just wanted to mention that. And also, real quick, this is a new item. I've had it for a couple of months now, but I've only used it outside a couple of times. But this is the Neo Air X-Lite. It's the extra large. And if any of you remember me talking about my Neo Air Original, I absolutely love that thing, and what I loved about it was that it was a rectangular shape. As many of you know, as most of you probably know, the X-Lite is not a rectangular shaped sleeping pad. It's tapered at the head and foot end. But I can't really say nothing bad about it. I got the large, took a weight penalty and got the large, so that does help the fact out a little bit. However, I can still tell at the foot end, on occasion my foot will kind of fall off the side, and that does bother me. But overall, I gotta say that I think I like it a little better than I was thinking I would. Maybe because I feel like I'm forced to, because I don't have any other choice. But anyway, it seems like it's doing well. It kept me warm, but we didn't have cold temperatures. This light color, it picks up. It's dirty. I actually need to clean it. But anyway, it did well. And also, this is how I carried it in my pack. I folded it up like this and shoved it right down in the back of my pack, and it provided the frame for my pack. No issues with that. So that's the two big items. There's a couple other smaller items here I want to talk about real quick. Just start with this. This is just my MLD 475 mug. Of course, I've got a cozy that I cut the bottom out of. This is just a can cozy. You can get them anywhere. Cut the bottom out of it, and I put a hot lips on it. And this is my cup. I think all of this together weighs like 1.8 ounces, so it's not too bad. But it worked out great. I'm pretty excited. I like it. It works pretty good. It may be less than 1.8. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe 1.6. Also, Polycro Groundsheet. To be honest with you, and this may shock some people, this is the first time I ever used just a Polycro Groundsheet. Actually, it's the first time I ever used Polycro Groundsheet, period, because I've always used Tyvek or a BD or a tent floor or something like that. But anyway, this is just a from Gossamer Gear. You can get a large sheet. I think it's 96 inches long and maybe 72 inches wide, somewhere around there. All I did is I cut this thing straight down the middle to make two sheets. So it's kind of long at 96 inches, but I figure as I use it more in warmer weather, it may actually shrink up a little bit. And even at 36 inches is kind of wide. However, I've got to say that considering my sleeping pad is so wide, I wouldn't want it any less wide, especially using it under a tarp and in wet conditions, because I didn't really struggle a whole lot, but I did have to be pretty conscious about keeping the edges of my quilt up on either my sleeping pad or at least on the edges. And there was only about so much, maybe about 4 or 5 inches at the most on each side that went out past the edges of the X-Lite. So I wouldn't want it any smaller or narrower, so I'm pretty happy with the size. I think it weighs about 1.5 ounces in the Ziploc bag here. And I like to keep it in the Ziploc bag just to kind of help contain it, and because it will get dirty. I mean, it's my ground sheet. So I can kind of contain some of the, even the water or the dirt inside there. But anyway, I was pretty happy with it actually. I like that. Let's see. Not a whole lot to say, but my Zebra Light H51 and my DIY headband's starting to get kind of nasty. I probably need to make another one and change it out. But you know what? Until it breaks, I'm probably not going to worry about it. Not anything new to say about this other than I just still absolutely love it. This is probably one of my Favorite pieces of gear that I have now, I don't have any desire to replace this light. It's definitely one of the pieces that I always keep in my pack. It only weighs 2 ounces with a single battery, with headlight and the strap, and I mean it's so versatile. I can go anywhere from 0.2 lumens to 200 lumens, and you know, a lot of people complain about the life of a battery, because on the Zebralight website they list a lot of the lives depending on what cycle you have it on. But I want to say one thing real quick about that. They are basing that on a 2,000 milliamp watts or whatever it's called, which is an interlope battery. I always use the lithium L91 batteries. All it is just the advanced or the ultimate lithium energizer battery. And I mean, I honestly I have not had to change a battery out while I was at camp. I didn't use it too much for this trip. I used it to read some and stuff like that, and just basically walk around camp at night. But I don't have any problems with it. The battery life, in my opinion, is good for what I do with it, and I've hiked with it in the mornings and at night, and I've had no issues with it. Anyway, great light, Zebralight H51. Real quick, I've been struggling about, you know, I got my phone, not really struggling. But anyway, I picked up some of these. I think they're 3x6 lock sacks. My Samsung Galaxy One fits perfectly inside this, and I'm confident in the seal. Just confident about it. I like it. I can still use my phone. It's of course touch screen, all that stuff, but I can still use it through the lock sack. I talked on it through the lock sack. No issues, no worries there. So I like that. My Kindle. This is brand new. I actually just got this for Christmas, but I really enjoyed having this. I do have a couple of companion guides on it. However, I also have just a couple of leisurely read books, some Stephen King, and I got The Hobbit and stuff like that on here. And I look forward to building my library on this instead of continuing to buy the books, although I admit I still love to have a soft cover. I'm a soft cover kind of guy. But I still like to have a soft cover in my hand and read like that. However, I'm looking forward to using the Kindle out on the trail. 6 ounces. I did put it inside a quart Ziploc bag, and it fit perfectly inside there, and I had no issues. I thought about finding some lock sacks, but they fit so well in the Ziploc bags that I'm not going to worry about it. But anyway, this is just the basic Kindle. Doesn't have a backlight on it, so I do still have to use my headlamp with it. But that's fine with me. I like that it's not touchscreen, because if it is cold and I have to use my fingers to do that, usually your gloves aren't going to work to do that. Instead, it's got these buttons on the side. You just press the button. I can do that with my gloves. Everything's buttons. I can hit those buttons with my gloves on or whatever. So I ain't got to worry about any of that. But anyway, I'm kind of excited about this. Like I said, 6 ounces, and these go for 69 bucks with the ads. So I like it. Let's see here. I already talked about that. This is my my Luke's Ultralight Seal Nylon Rain Jacket. Like I said, it did rain, so I actually wore this for a while. Of course, it is seal nylon, so I'm not going to lie and say it was super ultra breathable. But I will admit that I was easily able to wear this with just a base layer shirt on underneath it. I opened the pit zips, and I was able to wear this pretty comfortably, even hiking up hills and everything like that. I gotta say, I'm pretty excited about it. I will say one thing. I was talking with Jara from Light Trail, and he pointed out the fact, and to be honest, I didn't even realize this, but the way this jacket comes is the pit zips actually extend from the armpit out, whereas he was saying that he would prefer if it went from, you know, half of it was under the arm, half of it was along the body, and that makes sense. So I thought about that as I was using it, but like I said, I was able to use it. I can't really say that I had any issues out of it. You know, I don't expect it to be a super ultra light, ultra breathable material, because it's not. So I don't lie to myself about that. It was slightly cool, and of course the rain made it cool also. So it worked out pretty well so far in what I've used, and I look forward to continue using it. 4.7 ounces, I can't remember, but I think that's inside the stuff sack, which I didn't bring the stuff sack on the trip. But it's not a bad weight. Luke really made this to fit me. I'm really excited with the craftsmanship on it, the way it fits. I just like the jacket. But anyway, I really like that. I want to talk about stakes real quick, because a lot of people, up to this point, I've always just carried the skewer stakes. I got them from Lawson Klein. I've got some of the tie or shepherd hook stakes, and I've got some of the tie-eye stakes that I got from Lawson a while back. And I've been a huge fan of these stakes. They work great along the Appalachian Trail because it's so rocky. And these things, you stick them in the ground. If they hit a rock, they'll kind of bend just a little bit in the ground, or move, or whatever. But it's really super easy to get these in the ground. And they actually do. They hold pretty well. I've never had one come up. If it's the ground's super soft, or if there's strong winds or something, you know, I might put some rocks on top of it. But on this past trip, I gotta say that the first night I set up, I encountered a lot of rocky ground. And I've always heard people talk about taking a variety of stakes because you never know what kind of soil you're gonna hit. And I always consider, or after reading that so many times, I guess I kind of considered myself lucky that I never encountered a situation where I couldn't get a stake in the ground. So I started carrying on this trip. I carried 2 of these MSR mini groundhogs. I carried 2 of those, and I also picked up 4, because these come in 4 packs. These are the Ruta Lacura Sorex stakes is what they call it. It's carbon fiber shaft with aluminum tips and aluminum heads. And I carried 2 of those, 2 of the groundhogs, and I carried 6 of the skewer stakes. And I still got to say, I prefer the skewer stakes for Appalachian Trail, at least the sections that I've been on along the southeast, because, I mean, it's just easier to get them in the ground than these are, and I've never had any issues with getting them out. Actually, on this trip, I didn't even use the MSR stakes in the ground. I did use these just because they're cool. But I did use these on the head and foot end of the ridge lines, just because they do have more holding power than the skewer stakes. But that doesn't mean that I'm concerned about how much holding power that these have, because, like I said, I haven't had one fail. But anyway, I'm not sure what I'm going to do from this point forward. I just wanted to talk about it, maybe see what everybody else's thoughts are on that. What do you think? Stuff like that. The 2 last items I want to talk about first is my tarp. I just put up a post on my tarp a couple of weeks ago. This is the 6.5 by 10 Cuban fiber tarp. It's in white and it's 0.51 ounces. I think it weighs 5.8 ounces with all the tie outs that I have on it. I don't know, I've really got to say some good things about this tarp. My first pitch with it the first night, it was pathetic looking. I mean, it was a sad excuse. If you ask any of the guys that went with us on the trip, they'll tell you it was a sad excuse for pitch. It was an A-frame, and I did have issues with getting one stake in the ground, because where I set up, it just so happened that one of the corner tie-outs, there was just a huge slab of rock in the ground, and I ended up having to get one of my longer pieces of tie-outs, and I bet I tied the thing out probably 4.5 feet away from the edge, whereas the rest of them were, you know, anywhere from 1.5 feet or less. Also, the wind was kind of coming from the backside, and I distinguished the backside because that's where my cloud kill was. The backside, and kind of, if I'm looking at it, from the left side, kind of from that direction. So what I did is I borrowed one of hiking shoes' trekking poles, and I guide out on my tarp. Of course, I have 4 loops at each of the corners. I have the 2 ridgeline loops, and then along the long sides, I have 1 in the center of each side, 1 tie out. As well, I also have a panel pull on the center of each panel. I didn't tie out the center guy line or the panel pull on facing it the right side. The wind was coming from the left side for the most part, about probably 85% of the time. So I actually guide out that center pull along the bottom. I guided it out, and then I used Charlie's trekking pole, stood it up, and kind of pulled that panel out just a little bit, kind of pulled it up to the tip and then down to the ground. I want to say that on my other tarps, I use a little piece of shock cord on those panel pulls just to kind of help absorb some of the pressure from the wind hitting it. Those panel pulls are sewn into it and taped. They're not the adhesive kinds. But I woke up a number of times that first night, and I mean, that wind was just, it was really blowing into the side of that tarp. And there was a few times that I really expected that panel pull to just jerk right out of there. I would estimate the wind speeds between 20 to 25 mile per hour. I didn't have a tool to measure the wind speeds, but I've just got to say that there was some good hard winds. Most of the time it was kind of constant, sort of, you know, lasting about 10 or 15 seconds. However, at times it was gust. It just came upon you and hit you, and those are the ones I was expecting to pull it out. But it stood up, it held against the pressure. There's no stress points. I kind of looked at it the next morning. No stress points that I can tell anywhere. It doesn't leak. It's in good shape, so I'm really super excited about it. The second night I was able to, it wasn't not raining when I set it up, and I had a better patch of ground to set it up on. And I got a much better pitch out of it. Again, we had some higher winds that second night. Not quite as hard as the first night, but we did have some strong winds, and again, the tent held up well. The second night I did not guy out either one of the panels because the pitch on it was just really good, so I wasn't too worried about that. But it kept the shelter 6.5 by 10. It kept me dry. It held up to the wind. So far, I'm pretty excited about it. There is still some learning curve that I have to get used to it a little bit more. But I'm really confident in it after using it these 2 nights. The second night especially, to get that good pitch, I really tightened down on the tie-outs, put a lot of pressure on the tie-outs, and everything is looking good still. So I'm feeling pretty confident in the tarp, and I look forward to continue using it. And then the last thing, I know this has been a long video. Sorry guys, you know me, I like to talk. I'm sure a lot of people probably already turned it off by now. Oh well, they're lost, I guess. Anyway, the last thing I want to talk about is my light trail cook kit. It's an Esbit kit. It comes with the stuff sink here. Just kind of pull it open and show you. It comes with the lid, and if you want to really lighten this kit, my lid weighs 0.6 ounces. The whole kit by itself weighs 2.9 ounces, but you can drop this lid and save 0.6 ounces. Also, this is not going to be a review. I'll do another video on this, but just real quick, I want to show you how I've got things here. Inside here, I've got just a little piece of sponge. All of my cooking with this thing is going to be boiling. This sponge is not to clean the inside. It's actually to clean the underneath it, because this is an Esbit system. I found if I just kind of clean it up a little bit, it makes packing it up a little easier. However, I will admit on this trip, just because it was rainy and wet and everything, I didn't worry about it. I just packed it up with Esbit gook underneath it. But I do have just a little small piece of sponge. I just have a piece of light load towel, and this is really just to dry out the inside of the cook pot, because like I said, all I'm going to do is boil water in it, as well as a pot grabber, because it doesn't have handles on it. I could actually cut that down a little bit shorter if I wanted to. This is the windscreen and the paper clips. I've just kind of been leaving mine paper clip together and just kind of folding it up and putting it in the cook pot. That way I ain't got to worry about putting paper clips on it when I get done. It leaves me enough room and it works fine. I will say it's kind of, it's not completely circular, but who cares? It's been working. It's been doing a good job, and I'm happy with it. I've got some matches in there, and actually, I'm about out of matches. This is the the stove, the Esbit stove, and I just keep it in just a little cut down zip or sandwich bag here. I keep it in a sandwich bag because it does have the burnt residue from the Esbit in it. And what I like about this, I know you can't tell, but he's actually got them to notch out a little bit of the notch on this, and that way the cook pot will fit on there really secure and really easy. That's my one hang up with these stoves. I have another Esbit stove, and I always had an issue because I want to put it on there and it would always sit kind of crooked or something because the pots didn't just fit exactly right. But anyway, he's notched that out and it fits really well, and I like it. Okay guys, sorry about that. I blabbed my mouth too long and my video actually cut off at the 30-minute mark. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm happy with the way this entire setup works. This is not going to be the only video that I do on this kit, though. I do plan on doing another video and talking about this entire kit just a little bit more in depth. But until then, I've enjoyed using it the few times that I've used it, and I look forward to using it more often. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to post them below. I'll do my best to get back and respond to any of those questions you may have or the comments that you make. I appreciate you watching, guys, and until next time, see ya.